cleaned up. Like at the time when like everything blew up, I had stacks upon stacks. I had everything ready to go. I was like, let's go, let's do this.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like all the tense build up kind of just kept on going. And then there was just a couple just big blowouts. And then it's like, well, if you can't do this, then you're not going to live here. And I'm like, okay, well, so be it, because I didn't actually think he'd do it. And then he actually did it. And then it was kind of like a tense moment for me, because I'm thinking at 18, I think I'd be okay with the brand supporting me.
Hello and welcome to the Luck Creators Podcast, a podcast where we interview different young entrepreneurs who are going out there and doing more than just their homework. Some might say they're getting lucky, but we don't believe in luck the traditional way. We think that luck can be found and even created by making opportunities for yourself that can put you in the position to be lucky. Let's dive right into this week's episode. All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Luck Creators Podcast. I'm your host, Maximus Swenson, and today we'll be sitting down with Ethaniel to talk about his clothing brand, Aspect Apparel. In our last episode with the brand Basecamp, we talked about how TikTok started the new wave of young entrepreneurs in a way, and many of these people were starting clothing brands, but few have much to show for it, and one of the brands kind of leading this revolution, in my opinion, is Aspect Apparel, with over 300,000 followers on TikTok and more than 5 million likes. And yeah, so let's get started. Ethan, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ethaniel Kockentiet. I am the founder and still CEO of Aspect Apparel. We're about 7 months old and still rocking it.
Awesome. All right, so I want to learn a little bit about your past. I want the viewers to what were you like as a younger kid? How were you as a student in school? Hobbies? All that kind of stuff.
As a younger kid, it was mostly just being goofy around the house. The creativity really started sparking in about middle school when I discovered really art was my thing. I took drawing classes. I took a couple painting classes, wore off a little bit towards the end of middle school. Beginning of high school is really where everything kind of started taking off in the art spectrum of where I kind of wanted to go with things. I started taking multiple ceramics classes, multiple drawing classes, multiple you name it classes. And coming back down, I used to live in Alaska as the start of my high school career for freshman and sophomore year. But coming back down to Ohio, where I'm currently from and still live, I've been getting into photography, which shows kind of from product images now and photo shoots. And kind of accumulating as I'm going into my senior year, kind of accumulating those art credits so I could go to college for fine arts and specifically photography.
Awesome. So you kind of touched your artistic side, you're a pretty creative person, but have you always been interested in business and entrepreneurship?
That specifically, not exactly. I didn't know exactly what I was going to get myself into until really probably about 3 months in, until I realized that's kind of something I need. And frankly, I'm not regretting it. It is something I do not regret. It is something I think most every guy should learn at least a little bit.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So what made you kind of want to start a clothing brand?
The originality of it was wanting to have my own style, be able to show people my own style, and also being able to help the world. Currently, we still have a 10% donation with each order. It's not as publicized as I had it before because I got knocked a little bit by parents and they didn't exactly go for it. So I still do it personally, but mostly for ocean cleanup.
Awesome. That's awesome that you're doing this thing. You're starting a business for yourself, but you're also helping things around the world. So how did you get the idea for Aspect Apparel in specific?
Really, the originality of the name. So probably even at the end of elementary school and beginning of middle school, I did YouTube. It's the most cringiest thing you could think of. Most any other middle schooler did it. And then towards, I want to say beginning of high school freshman year, I really tackled it into a game called Geometry Dash, which I'm sure millions of people have heard of. And I played it for eons. I got really good at it, actually, and started making top 10 videos of this difficulty, that difficulty, what art and whatnot. And eventually I kind of wanted to transition it to kind of more than a Geometry Dash username. And out came kind of like, I did research on it, and out came Echo Aspect. And that went on for about 2 years and then kind of just died off. And I just kind of did my own thing, trying to figure out my own life. And then came around to kind of the idea of wanting to do a clothing brand. I'd seen a couple of my other friends have thoughts about it. Some of them even tried, but didn't get past even a month. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, I could give it my shot. I mean, this seems fun. I kind of know how to do it. And I really learned a lot. And kind of like, okay, what do I want to do? And so that's where the originality of wanting to show my style. And then, well, what about a brand name? And so I was like, well, I want to help the world. I was like, well, what about somebody's Aspect? And then that kind of clicked in my head. Wait a minute, I had Aspect in my old name. What about Aspect? And then I kind of went along with like what collective, Aspect Collective didn't come to my mind. And like, well, Aspect Apparel kind of has a ring to it. It's a little bit of alliteration. So I went with it.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, it's always good when a name just kind of comes along like that and it looks good. You got to make sure the text is good. But yeah. So was there any like in specific inspirations for you to start a brand, like people or other brands or stuff like that?
I'd mentioned before I'd seen a couple of my other friends do it, and I had the feeling inside me I kind of wanted to prove people wrong. Like I'd had a past of bullying, and I'm like, okay, well, I kind of want to do something with my life to show, like, hey, I'm that. I know I'm human. I'm as good as you. Let's go. And then kind of came the motivation and came built up, and here it is now.
Awesome. Well, that's cool. There's that backstory behind it. Just really goes to show that a name can mean a lot more than just a name. So all right, what did the beginning of Aspect look like for you? So what did the first like month or two look like?
The first 2 months, actually specifically, were probably the worst ones we've had. Off the launch, it was my girlfriend who actually bought first. I had a couple throughout those first couple days because of friends, and then I had trouble of how do I publicize it. And then I talked to a couple people, and like, oh, word of mouth is great. Well, as Gen Z, we're on our phones all the time. Word of mouth doesn't exactly work except for drama. And so I was kind of kept on doing research, and everybody's like, oh, Google ads, oh, Facebook ads. And I tried a little bit, $20 at a time, and nothing ever worked. And then I tried TikTok a little bit at first. I did like 2 videos and maybe got 200 views total on both of them. And then I kind of was like, you know what, let's keep going. At that point, my best friend had quit on the brand. And so I was like, okay, I'm by myself now. I got to figure something out. This is before I'd gotten kicked out too. So I wasn't exactly under too much pressure, but I just wanted to keep it going. I took it at TikTok, and the first video, I think it was like the 3rd video we actually ever made. And it took off and got like, I want to say it was like 400,000 views. And then 2 days after, actually, no, a day after, we got the video that currently stands at 8.6 million views.
Jeez, that's insane. So what did you talk about kind of starting, but like, how did you go about starting it? Like building the website and making your first line. How did that all go for you?
Oh, it took, I mean, any advice to anybody listening to this and wanting to start their own brand, do your research. That's one thing I wish I had done before. I did do a little research, but in all honesty, not enough. I started with heat transfer vinyl, which is okay, but it's not the best. Screen printing is always the best way to go. Kind of figuring out where you want to get your blanks, where you want to get it from a blank wholesaler, or so on and so forth. Figuring out what materials you want, figuring out your designs, like what you're going to draw with what program. I'd just say take a lot of research, and that's one thing I would kind of wish I had done more.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So what do you remember what your first line was, if you want to talk about that a little bit?
Alaska Aspect. So like this previous summer, I had moved back from Alaska. My mom lives in Alaska and my dad lives here in Ohio. That's kind of the relationship on that.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, well, we're in Ohio. People haven't seen mountains here. This is pretty just hilly city. So I
Yeah.
went with kind of like, okay, well, you don't see many pictures on clothes, and that's kind of how the vinyl worked out. Screen printing's harder with that. And I was like, okay, well, what if we put a picture on it, called it Alaska Aspect? And then originally we were going to go for more collections that ended in aspect, like that places or versions aspect. And kind of it was what I think it was like a 5-picture collection, and we started with only t-shirts and hoodies.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. So how a lot of people are asking me this, and they're like, all right, I really want to start something, whether it's a business, a clothing brand, whatever it is, but how are you able to kind of get those funds? So a lot of people I know that other guys have interviewed, they started kind of with print on demand, so very, very low barrier of entry. But it sounds like you didn't really go that route. So how are you able to get those funds? Do you have a job, or how'd you do that?
Right now, Aspect is my full-time job, but getting it started, I worked at a Kroger. For anybody who doesn't know what Kroger is, Fred Meyer is kind of the same thing, if anybody knows what Fred Meyer is. I worked at a Kroger and for about a year-ish, and accumulated that at the start of the brand. My best friend helped me with it too, so it was a joint between me and him. I think we invested about $2,000 before we started turning profit.
Awesome. Yeah, it tends to be how it goes. So now we're gonna kind of move on to the other section. We touched on this a little bit, but TikTok. So it's starting to become a theme on this podcast. However, we can't argue that the fact that TikTok, if you want your brand to reach a lot of people, TikTok is definitely the way to go.
Oh,
So what drew you to start making TikToks about your brand?
it really kind of like Instagram wasn't all going for it, and like Instagram is there. Once you start gaining a following off of TikTok, I mean, Instagram is definitely worth it. But TikTok kind of was like a last resort kind of thing. I didn't know exactly how to go truly viral. I had a personal account that had like one of those, oh, you need to like this so like I can go viral and do this, that, the other thing. And it got like 900,000 views. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I do that with the brand? And I'd gone through my feed and saw a couple other brands at the time, Unexpected, and I want to say it was Eighth Wonder.
Mhm.
And I watched kind of how their videos did it, and I bounced off of one of theirs, and that's kind of how the first couple of viral TikToks went.
All right, so you touched on this a little again earlier. But do you remember, can you talk about some of the TikToks that really blew up for you?
The first one was, I mean, they all kind of followed the theme as like me staying up till 4 a.m. to help my brand or do this, that, or at the time when it was a trend, not go to college and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And there was others like, it's like, oh, stupid, you think you got a chance, and then that would like egg people to like be sorry for you, and then and I mean,
Mhm.
at the time it worked, and at the time when brands kind of saw that, they're like, hey, it's working, and then people would start hating like, oh, you don't even work or do this, that, the other thing. It's like, we don't care. You see how many likes coming. I mean, eventually that wears off because that does start looking bad for a brand,
Mhm.
but kind of like transition into, hey, here's this launch. Um, the Spangled release is currently, it's like the stars all over, has Aspect Apparel in the middle.
Mhm.
That video actually took off a little bit. I don't know exactly why, but I guess people like that product.
Awesome. Well, so all right, so you've had a lot of this great success on TikTok, and it looks like you're doing pretty well on Instagram as well. But have you been able to convert a lot of these TikTok followers over to kind of closing that sale and actually converting them to customers?
It's a little iffy. I do constant TikToks. I try to get about 9 to 12 a day, so you can get way more like viewers and following and such like that. It is a little hard to get them to buy, but as long as like honestly, if you get the followers and they see what's going on, it tends to get them more yearning for your clothing.
Yeah, awesome. So, what would you say to someone that's just starting out about marketing on TikTok?
Don't ever stop. Like I said, 9 to 12 posts a day. Use hashtags. Make sure it's with your brand and along your brand, not something else in your life.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So you talked about Instagram a little bit and ads, sort of, but are there any alternatives to TikTok that you think are great, like marketing channels for brands?
Oh, frankly, I'm trying to discover that myself. TikTok and Instagram, like I said, are my two main ones. One thing I'm trying to get into is YouTube. I've seen some clothing brands get a following on YouTube. So kind of like throwing it back to when like we were middle schoolers and did
Mhm.
YouTube. It was really cringy. But bringing that, learning it for your brand and showing your brand, basically just find whatever and put your brand into it.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so kind of moving on to the next section of this, I kind of want to talk about your process about how you make your clothes. So first, you talked about this a little bit, but how are you currently going about making your apparel?
All right, so basically, I get my clothing from a website called Bulk Apparel, and some of them from Blank Style. Bulk Apparel, I have family that works for, so I kind of get my own stuff from there. And then Blank Style, I get from like smaller brands. I'll have that shipped into me, and then I'll take it, put it on my table. I do screen printing, so I'll take my screen and I'll put my ink on it, and then grab a squeegee and just bring it up and down the screen, kind of how like any normal screen printing you see on YouTube is.
Yeah,
Other than that, uh, me and my fans actually, we went on a small campaign and donated, whatever you want to call it, $5,000, and we got a new embroidery machine due
that's
to
awesome.
due to our old one breaking. And thankfully, I feel so blessed for what we've all come to do. I mean, we wouldn't have been able to do it without anybody. So basically, it's just between screen printing and embroidery, which is the best option for most any clothing brand. You could see it through Nike, you could see it through Adidas, you could see it through Vans, you could see like through most anything.
Yeah. So how is the like the making of your clothes changed over time? You kind of mentioned in the beginning you're doing more of the vinyl heat press transfers. So how's that changed? Just kind of from that to the screen printing, or
Oh, the very first was heat transfer paper. Don't ever do that.
like the
We did that.
iron-on ones, right?
Yep, we did that maybe the first 3 weeks, and I had it on one of my shirts, and it came off so fast. We're like, okay, we got to figure something out. We figured out what heat transfer vinyl was, and saw that was doing all right, so we went with it. And then what was it like? I think it was probably right after I got kicked out. I learned about screen printing and learned how to do that, and went along with it. Did tests on it, and it's literally, literally written ever since.
Awesome. Yeah. So is there a new way you kind of want to experiment going forward in the future about making your clothes?
Oh, if I can like get more styles, if I can get like one thing I am looking at, which most any other brand I've seen has done, but I want to give it a shot on my own perspective, is split clothing. I haven't seen too many people do split t-shirts. I want to do the split hoodies. Of course, like I think that's so cool, no matter what,
Yeah.
no matter people's and brands are doing it. That's something I want to try. But basically, the main goal, kind of going forward with the brand, is kind of keeping on. There's not too much of a goal just yet, but probably we're looking at about a year, maybe, to get a building.
Awesome. So what kind of goes on behind the scenes to make the designs that you end up printing on shirts?
We use Adobe Illustrator, CorelDRAW, and Procreate. So if we got something in our head we got to put down real fast, I just grab the iPad and put it in Procreate. If I have time to sit down and kind of just think it through, I'll get on Adobe Illustrator. And on some of them, I'll get on CorelDRAW because you can have many effects you can put on there. You can put so many blends. You can put so many shadows and shine and stuff like that. I mean, if you want to take it really simple, I've seen some people do Pixlr. I mean, it's not the best option, but if you're doing embroidery, you could put like 3 texts of your brand name up there, put them different colors, slide into your machine and go.
Yeah, awesome. So do you kind of mentioned this earlier that originally you were working with someone else, kind of a co-founder, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now, do you have anyone else working with you, like employees, or are you just doing this all by yourself right now?
I want to say probably about 85-90% of me. My girlfriend does come over. She does the email. She does the DM. So if you ever see your email or your Instagram direct message, it's either her or mostly her or sometimes me if it's very specific. Um, Originally, I had my best friend in it, and we did it for probably about the first 2 months. And then when nothing started working, he quit. He came back temporarily, and then that was kind of the point. Where it was like, okay, we need some trust, and it's just not there. We split ways from that, and then my girlfriend has been like, okay, well, this is a lot for you, and it is. Trust me, it's like I'm staying up to like 5 a.m. sometimes, but she'll come over from time to time and help do the screen printing. It's a pretty easy process, but she's been like the help online and sometimes in the person with clothes.
Yeah, it's always good to have that extra person there just kind of help you out with the loose ends and stuff. So we talked about kind of going back to TikTok a little bit. We talked about how there's all these brands on TikTok. So how have you kind of been able to differentiate yourself from all these other brands when some of them are just putting like a word on a shirt? And I know you have more unique artwork and a lot of colors. So is that kind of your goal to separate yourself from all those other people?
Of course, I want to be separate, but I want to have my own meaning. I want to have my own purpose behind it. Some people just put it on there. They want the money. They're like, hey, buy my brand. So literally, I don't have to go to college or don't have to have a job. They want to lay around and play video games. I mean, in my case, I'm not going to put myself in the sorry point. I pay rent. That's kind of what I'm in it for the most part, and then putting most of it away for who knows what's next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you talked about this too. So you're doing this full time. So what would that process look like from kind of transferring from the regular? Because I'm assuming you're still in high school, correct?
Yep. I still have my senior year to go.
Okay. So yeah, how did that process? So, well, you kind of got lucky since you started this 7 months ago. You didn't have to be in school too much, but how do you kind of balance that? And how are you able to how are you planning to do it going back to school in the fall?
I mean, it's for the whole brand process. It's been a little awkward. We started it like December. It was December 27th, 2019. So we didn't have the pandemic yet. December, January, February, we didn't. February, I think it was like 21st and 22nd is when we really started picking up momentum. So it was just casual going to school and then kind of coming home and then just doing the work to make the clothes. It really changed, like I said, in February when we popped off. I remember sitting in school in my math class specifically and just seeing the notifications on my phone, order after order after order, going, oh man, I'm so screwed. And then kind of keeping on catching up, we did just fine. And then that's kind of like when the pandemic hit and everybody's like, oh, well, what's this? And that's when everybody wasn't as so serious back then just yet. Just kept keeping on and just doing online work. And then really when everything kind of started shutting down and we're like, oh, well, this is pretty serious. Frankly, in my mind, like, this is awesome. I get to have the whole entire day doing this. And all I have to sit here for 30 minutes on my computer, school related, and just get my online classes done. And then as summer's gone on, it's casual, wake up whenever the heck you want to, get as many orders as you can, go to sleep.
Yeah.
But as school is coming back, it's really uncertain because my school system is literally, we do not have a start date. We don't know what's going on. Our like aerial schools that we bounce off of have established that they're doing the first quarter online. And they don't even know what that even means. If we can literally just wake up and do it, if there's scheduled times where we have to sign in. So really everything is up in the air right now.
Yeah, it's kind of the same here. My younger siblings will be going to school, but we're here in Minnesota and they still don't have a set start date or anything as well. It's crazy, crazy times. So, plans for school otherwise, are you planning? Because I know you kind of talked about earlier, it's like the TikTok trend, oh, I don't want to go to college. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, if you truly mean you don't want to go to college, then really honestly quit your brand because that's really not the reason you should be starting a brand is for the money, for not going to college, for literally living in your parents' basement or trying to get more to live off of your own rent and stuff like that. Really, it's kind of just having the meaning behind it. It's kind of like pulling it in, like I said, in my case, rent. It's got to have a purpose.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All right, so moving on. So, you talked about this a little bit, but you actually got kicked out of your house. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Um, it was, it's, I'm trying to think of the process of it because it was really just mixed everywhere. Really, it started, like I said, with family issues. There'd be arguments about this, arguments about that. Some of it I'll keep personal, but like there was main keys where I got, oh, there's so much of like these shirts in the house. Like you got to get cleaned up. Like at the time when like everything blew up, I had stacks upon stacks. I had everything ready to go. I was like, let's go, let's do this.
Yeah.
And kind of it just kind of like all the tense build up kind of kept on going, and then there was just a couple just big blowouts, and then it's like, well, if you can't do this, then you're not going to live here. And I'm like, okay, well, so be it, because I didn't actually think he'd do it, and then he actually did it. And then it was kind of like a tense moment for me because I'm thinking 18, I think I'd be okay with the brand supporting me, but like where am I going to go? Because around here the cheapest apartment is like $900 a month.
Yeah.
And thinking, okay, well, I also don't have my license yet, which has kind of been really kind of hard on me too. So I'm thinking, what if I need supplies? What if I need this? What if I need that? And then kind of came along, even though like me and my best friend have had like the couple of times in the past where we're like, okay, well, we're done with this. Um, we've been friends for, I think, 13 years, and that's not going to totally tear us apart. And his dad actually came to me and said, hey, here's your rent base, which was way cheaper than what we've got in the area. And I took it, and then that's kind of where I live. I live with him and his family at the point in time.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome that you're kind of able to sort of make the best of the situation and you're following your dreams and living your dreams. So, what has been the biggest challenge in running a brand?
Keeping up. I'll be honest on that. There was a point where I was probably about 140 orders behind, and the latest I've ever been on an order was 2 months, and I ended up refunding her, and she still got the close, and she was still happy in the end game. But keeping up has definitely been something I like. I think I've probably got about 60 right now to do, but I mean I've got like a whole ton lined up, so I probably really only got 30. But keeping up, and that's kind of one of the things I'm worried about, is if we do have a set schedule of online school, is if I can keep up with that while doing shirts
Okay,
and
yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah, I agree with my brand. Keeping up with orders, it gets difficult. I remember this winter with some of these hoodies, I was doing embroidery on all my hoodies, doing it all myself as well. And my embroidery machine actually broke on me. So it's like, oh, I have like over a dozen orders that I need to get embroidered and everything. I need to get these shipped out. I was luckily able to get Amazon, get a new embroidery machine. But yeah, those get stressful keeping up because then you get all these angry emails and it's
All
never
right,
fun.
you want to be happy at all times you can.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what advice would you give to someone that's just getting started?
Kind of gonna put a compilation together about what I've said over the podcast. Really do your research. I recommend going straight into screen printing.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, even with all like the basics ball stuff, which works perfectly fine. It's nothing compared to people hating on Gildan clothing. Find your wholesaler. Find the brand you want to print on. Most any brand is okay. Lots of people hate on Gildan. If you want to start on Gildan, it's actually pretty okay. If you've done your research, you'd know that Supreme actually is on a Gildan t-shirt.
Yep.
Find if you can in the eventual future, if you get to save up, or if you do have enough money, get an embroidery machine. I recommend starting with a forehead. They are pretty costly. Like mine's like one of the cheaper ones, and it was $5,000. Do the research on getting your brand out there. I recommend using TikTok. Just constantly take at it. I know I've seen some brands that are still struggling with it, but they're still getting at least a couple orders every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. So what are some of the again, this we're kind of like wrapping this up, but you mentioned kind of little tidbits throughout the podcast. But what are kind of the long-term goals and where do you want to see Aspect Apparel in the next 5, 10, 20 years?
Oh, well, I mean, start off in like the 5-year range. I want to see it at least maybe in some type of industrial building, maybe not too big, like even a small building would work just fine. I want to work on getting like all the tools upgraded. I want to get more space because all I have is this basement, and this basement's already flooded with clothes. And there's our like my best friend and his brother come down here and we game every once in a while. So getting more space is definitely that key. Getting newer, better equipment, being able to figure out the designs for screen printing, more complicated related. 10 years would probably be probably having like just the store and then having like the industrial building with it. And then from there, getting multiple locations, bigger, better, so on and so forth.
Awesome. That's exciting. So what can people expect to see from you in the immediate future? Do you have any new lines coming up? You want to talk about those?
The most immediate one I can think of, collection related, is the Enthusiast collection. I've had probably about like 5, 6 people waiting super patiently, probably about the past, 3-ish months. I had a competition back, goodness, I don't even remember at this point, on art, on who would like, okay, well, here's your opportunity. What are you going to put on a shirt? And I had people send in art, and it's been pushed on and gone crazy, and then it's just sometimes actually forgotten. Um, but the Enthusiast collection features, I think, is like 5 or 6 art pieces from followers and fans of Aspect Apparel. and that is looking to be our first fully embroidered collection. We're hoping, at least. If not, we'll have like one or two that are screen printed. But the Enthusiast collection is what we're looking at right now. Other than that, we're looking at kind of like individual pieces first. With the new embroidery machine, we're looking to get embroidered products out, as we only have like one product that actually is embroidered.
Mm-hmm.
Into glow-in-the-dark stuff, as we've gotten glow-in-the-dark ink and glow-in-the-dark thread. So you can be seeing glow-in-the-dark pieces coming out sometime soon. And we're also, the newest thing that we're looking at doing right now currently is customs. The first thing that fans will be able to see is you'll be able to get your first name dash Aspect Apparel on a custom crew neck or hoodie is what we're looking at first. And then from there, we'll figure out how you can send your art in, and we can do it for you.
That's awesome. So to wrap it all up, so where can the listeners find you?
You can find us on TikTok. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram. Our Instagram is aspectapparel.us, and on TikTok and YouTube, it is just normal Aspect Apparel.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add, talk about?
Hey, if you all are starting a clothing brand, I wish you best luck. Make sure there's a purpose. Make sure you do your research. You got this. Do not quit. Because if you quit, what's the purpose in that, man?
Couldn't say it any better. So I hope everyone enjoyed listening to this episode. If you guys want to go check them out, I'll leave all the links down below in the description of the podcast notes. Well, thank you guys so much for listening and watching this week's episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Till next time, guys.